Hello everyone and welcome to the very first episode of Gamecock on the Right. I'm your host Dakota.
And I'm Noah.
And we are going to kind of basically give you an introduction to the podcast and kind of what we want to expect out of it. And just get comfortable, I suppose. We invite you to, get cozy up for the next half hour or so and maybe get a snack or something. I don't know. So our big thing that we want to hash out in this episode, our first episode, is what to expect out of the podcast. So this podcast is going to be, in a way, a time capsule to look back at, but also to look at in the now. So our goal with this is to talk to young conservatives, mostly in college, to get a first account, a primary source on what it is like being a conservative in college in the year 2023. And as the podcast goes on, that'll expand. But right now, this is kind of the focus. And our goal is to bring on different guests to just come speak their mind about current events, current things on campus, and the conservative, stories about what's happened in the past and the conservative movement as a whole.
Right, and some of those speakers are going to be students here on campus. They're going to be leadership within different conservative orgs, along with people from the community. We're planning to try to get in some of our local speakers, some of our local politicians, and just kind of get the worldview from that as well.
Yeah, and kind of relating to the speakers we get that are not directly in college right now. We're going to try to direct it to the experiences of college conservatives. That's kind of the big push for this podcast, is the focus.
Right, absolutely.
And I know that we've, I guess we ought to introduce ourselves a little bit further, as we're kind of the host and co-host. So my name, like I said, is Dakota Wilkinson. I'm actually a senior this year, and I'm the president of our USC chapter of the College Republicans. I major in criminal justice and sociology, and recently we just restarted the College Republicans at USC last April, and we decided that it would be kind of a good way to, or a good time to basically do this podcast alongside the revival of the club.
Absolutely. So yeah, my name is Noah Lindler. I am a sophomore aerospace engineering major. I'm also an electrical engineering minor. And with that, I've always kind of been interested in politics. I kind of grew up surrounded by politics from my upbringing, conservative Christian family here in the South. I'm from South Carolina, so I've always been intrigued in South Carolina politics. And now more than ever, going into middle school, high school, getting into more national politics, and it's something I've always just really enjoyed. I always enjoyed, talking with people who I agree with, people I disagree with, trying to find common ground. And I hope with this podcast we'll have the opportunity to do that as well.
Yes, agreed. Alrighty, so I guess the first thing that we ought to hammer out is kind of why this podcast. And I think that the reason that this podcast came to be, the idea of the podcast, came from a conversation that I had with a good friend that's part of our Young Americans for Freedom on campus, the YAF chapter. And he explained to me how back in the 1960s, there was a bit of a protest gone wrong. During the height of the Vietnam War, a bunch of anti-war protesters went into Russell House, which is kind of the heart of campus. It's a big building with, a lot of the dining options, all the offices for the student life and stuff like that, and where a lot of the organizations meet. And they barricaded the building, not letting anyone else in, and in defiance of the ongoing war. And the YAF chapter ended up coming to blows physically with these anti-war protesters. And I remember being like, well, that's an interesting story. No one knew that. But I would like to kind of hear I wanted to basically hear the background of all of this, right? Because you hear the story, but I don't know what exactly happened personally. I'm sure that there's a write-up somewhere about it, but I was like, wouldn't it be nice to, like, get the inside scoop on something like that? And kind of, you know, hear the sides of the story. And that's kind of how this podcast kind of came to be, is this idea of we want to hear what conservatives on campus, their first-person accounts of how it is being conservative on campus, and their reactions to, like, current events, politics, you know, national, state, and local, and even campus politics, and kind of getting that point of view.
Exactly, because when we have protests here on campus, which we've had pretty often recently, going back from COVID, and getting the experiences of people who've been part of those protests on both sides, and just being able to kind of see what's happening on campus with that.
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, we've had a lot of, this has been a very interesting time to be a conservative on campus. I personally came in 2020, which is right in the middle of the COVID era. You know, everything was about COVID back then.
Right. And I was a sophomore in high school when it all broke down, and seeing how it affected from a high school point of view, because I'm a little bit younger, but which means I have more time with the college Republicans and be able to kind of shape my image when elections come around, and just be able to have a different point of view as well with it. I think it's important, and that's what one of the big things we're going to get out of this.
Yeah, because I mean, even in that event alone, as a senior being here at a different time, we both, just the two of us, have totally different point of views on the same event. You know, we were in different areas, different times, different places in our lives, and I think that these different point of views are what we're trying to compile here. That's the big push. And our goal is it's not just going to be us speaking, but we're trying to bring on a bunch of guest speakers to come and give their accounts. Yes. And I think that is going to be kind of, I think it's going to be good to look back on as conservatives to see, you know, for our enjoyment of being like, oh wow, that's how things were back then, but also just, you know, to have that piece of history and to kind of catalog the events as they come.
Right, and kind of put ourselves in the people who are going to have on and allow them to be able to kind of be immortalized through this.
Yeah. And
allow their views and their experiences to kind of forever be remembered. Mm-hmm. Alrighty, and so next up, we wanted to go into kind of the current state of politics on campus here and across campuses in general. So at USC, we have a pretty big divide within our student orgs. There are kind of your core conservative orgs, and you have your much more left-leaning orgs, and then you do have some that are kind of nonpartisan as well.
Yeah, we have a few of those.
So for our conservative orgs on campus, these are the people we kind of ally ourselves with and we work with a decent amount. We have ourselves, obviously, the college Republicans. Yep. And then you also have Turning Point USA, which is founded by Charlie Kirk and has chapters all across the country at college campuses and high schools all across the country.
Oh, yeah, very popular.
And we work with them a lot. They have a very, they're one of the biggest conservative orgs here on campus now.
Yeah, one of our bigger partners.
For sure. And then we also have YAF, or the Young Americans for Freedom. Mm-hmm. Also pretty large, pretty active here on campus.
Yeah, very educational.
Yeah, they're much more education focused, while Turning Point is a lot more focused on education, but also current events is kind of their
current events and activism. That's their big push.
Exactly. And then we also have the Advocates for Life, which is the pro-life organization here on campus.
Yep.
They're very active in South Carolina, especially with the recent passing of federal court ruling on the heartbeat bill that they were a big part of pushing here on campus. And with that, we also have some of the more center orgs, including Uncensored America, which have had events recently with a lot of protests.
They're about the same age we are. They started back in, I believe, April, and they have immediately hit the ground running on their events and even some controversy.
Exactly, yeah. They've had a lot of speakers. Their whole thing is pushing for freedom of speech and inviting speakers who have been deplatformed overall to have a platform to speak on campus. Yep. And some of their more recent people they've had on. Last semester they had Laura Loomer, And then this semester so far, they have had Harut. I can't think of his last name right now. Had to come speak.
They advertised him as just Harut.
Yeah, so he's pretty well known on campus for some of his takes.
Very interesting
character, but he spoke very well, and I think it was a good event. Whether we agree with him or not, I think everybody has the right to come out and speak, and they're actually planning to have some of the more left-leaning orgs having some of their people come out and speak, which is awesome.
Yeah. Additionally, we also have some other orgs like Free Speech Forum, which is very similar to UA in the sense that they're both pro-free speech, pro-debate, though the two of them have kind of a different goal with that. Free Speech Forum is more focused on the debate and the developing of, kind of speech skills, while UA is more, I guess,
a platform.
Ideologically driven,
right.
More than practically driven.
Correct.
I would say that would be the biggest divide between the two. And then we also have the left-leaning orgs on campus. We have the College Democrats.
We actually worked pretty well together with them.
Yeah, we're actually planning some possible events. Stay tuned.
For sure.
And we also then have other groups like the Carolina Socialists, who have been so lovely welcome into the campus politics from them. And additionally, we also have some another possible group I know coming into fruition that on the socialist side that are a little bit more privy to having a discourse with us.
Yeah, having debate, actually having an open conversation, see if we can find some common ground.
Yeah.
And we're planning on inviting some of them out to actually come out and speak and be able to have some political discussion, and be able to give them a platform to come out and speak as well.
Yeah.
And with that, we also have an organization that is not a USC-based organization. However, many of the organizations on campus are a part of them. They are known as OAT, or Organized Against Transphobia.
They've made a very big, loud noise on campus at the end of last year.
Yeah, Turning Point hosted a kind of a meeting discussing transgenderism, and the OAT and some of their people, including in OAT is the College Socialist, IRIS, which is the LGBTQ plus organization on campus, along with others. I'm not sure if College Dems are part of them or not. I'll have to go back and check. But they kind of came and did a protest against it, and Turning Point turned it into an open discussion versus just an informational meeting.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you can find clips of that on Turning Point's Instagram page.
Yep, they have them.
Along with them showing up to a lot of the Uncensored America events. We have not had any events with them showing up yet because we haven't, like I said, we're so new.
Very new.
That we haven't had events where they've been come out to protest. But it will happen eventually, and they have every right to protest.
They do.
As long as you keep it civil, please protest.
Yeah.
That is your constitutional right, because we'll protest against stuff, and I hope they afford us the same rights.
Let's just hope that they can be civil. That's the one big hope.
Yep, civil discourse is what drives change in the country, and I think us having the discourse with them and them having discourse with us, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
It challenges our opinions, it allows more nuanced takes, and I think that's a good thing.
I agree. Alrighty, well, I guess that we've kind of laid out the politics on campus, like the opening of Game of Thrones, where all the castles are being built. We kind of laid out the map of politics on campus. And I think that we're going to obviously expand on this, and this is going to change every now and then. We've actually seen a lot of change through the orgs on campus. Orgs have come, orgs have gone. This is a very fluid movement on campus. But I'm excited personally to see what happens. I know that, like us, we're part of that fluidity. We just came back. College Republicans has been dead for about a year before we brought it back. Yeah. And in my freshman year, there was College Republicans, and then there was no more, and we're deciding to give it a revival and then a facelift. That's our goal.
Yeah, because they had different ways of doing it. One of the big things we're going to be pushing is education about the current state of the primaries, especially coming into primary season. We kind of came in at the perfect timing going into primaries.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the big things we want to do with that is kind of educate everybody on the different current Republican presidential candidates, basically, and trying to create informed voters, because that's one of the big things. While we as an organization aren't going to endorse anybody during the primary season, we want people to be able to kind of understand what each person stands for, what their views are, the voting records, and allow them to make their own choices. We all have our own picks for who we think would be best, and right now they're changing still. As the debates go on and as things come out, we'll make sure, because that's one of the things we've done so far, is hosted debate watch parties. And I think that's going to be, as debates go on, this will be one of the big things that's going to draw people in as well.
I agree. And we basically the exec team kind of came together and said we would be doing, at least it's our opinion, that we would be doing the club and the movement as a whole a disservice if we just came in and tried to pick someone.
Exactly.
Obviously, once we get farther and farther in, especially when the primaries are over, then the decision is made.
We'll start our campaigning,
and we plan on, trying to get a Republican into the White House.
Exactly.
Not really. Let me rephrase. Not a Republican for Republican's sake. A conservative into the White House.
Absolutely.
Someone that'll push good American values.
Exactly. Very big on. I know as at work, where some of our biggest pushes right now are for a very strong 2A.
Very strong 2A.
Along with very strong First Amendment.
Agreed.
And a very pro-life.
Yes.
That is kind of, at least personally for me, those are my big things I look at when I'm picking who I'm voting for. Mm-hmm. And I think overall as an org, that is kind of our things we push as well.
I also think that a couple of other things that will be a big issue coming in the 24 election is obviously, not to sound like, some, but the economy.
Yeah.
No one's favorite topic. I think foreign policy with the situation with Russia and Ukraine, with the Middle East, and especially with China and the Taiwan situation, I think we have plenty to deal with on that note that it's going to affect all of us in the future.
Alrighty, and with that, we're going to move on to kind of the current state of college Republicans and our growth up into this point. So like Dakota said, we kind of started out in April, reviving what was basically a dead college Republicans. They hadn't been on campus for about a year. So me and Dakota decided back in about February, probably, we started discussing starting up the College Republicans, and then we founded it officially in April, signed all the paperwork for it.
Yeah, and the big reason that we wanted to do College Republicans was we knew that it was going to be a primary year coming up, in 24, and we're going through the primaries now, and we wanted to have a ability on campus to do campaigning, to do endorsements, not that we are endorsing, but just the ability that we could once there is a candidate. Basically, the other conservative orgs on campus, all of them cannot legally endorse or campaign. So we needed that branch on campus to push for conservative ideals in a political sense. And
exactly.
that is the exact reason that we're here. But we're also additionally here is to educate people on the politicians themselves, but also the platform and politics, like how politics works, the gears of how those systems operate.
Yeah, what happens behind closed doors and how politicking happens.
Yes,
how lobbying works, how all the different things within D.C. and then within, for us here
in the State House.
Yeah, in the State House here in Columbia.
But how the Congress works, how Senate works, how bills are passed. How what the powers of the president, that stuff that people, we believe, need to know on a fundamental level of how, because if you hear a random, article in the news of this bill is in the Senate, what does that mean? What is that bill going to have to get either killed or passed, depending on if you want the bill or not? That's the kind of stuff that I think that people need to know, so that they can better understand the politics that are going to happen around them.
Absolutely. And I think we're kind of uniquely situated where USC is. We're in the capital of South Carolina. If we walk, actually right now from where we're recording, 5 seconds across the street, we're at the State House.
It's very close.
We're uniquely situated to be able to be close to so many politicians and have the opportunities to go out to the State House to talk to politicians make appointments to be able to actually discuss, what's happening on campus,
Legislation and
discuss current legislation and everything with that. And I think that's going to be really important going forward. And with that, I also wanted to discuss kind of some of the current politics happening around campus, current politics happening nationally. There's so much going on in the news right now. You have everything from the indictments of Trump and the politicization of the justice system that's happening right before our very eyes, and kind of the degradation of the people's trust in our judicial system. And I think that's really, really dangerous.
I agree.
And then with that, we also have been able to have the opportunities as college Republicans. We're seeing all this craziness happen right now, but our positions right now of college Republicans is actually giving us a lot of really unique opportunities. Within the past, since the past 6 months or so since the org started, I've had opportunities, and Dakota has as well, to do interviews with people on and off campus for newspapers, kind of cataloging our experiences as a conservative org and as individuals. I think that's something that's really, really cool that we've been actually have the opportunity. It's happening more and more. We just got a request yesterday from one of the student magazines that to be able to contribute into a piece about the current state of politics as a conservative org, and they're also doing interviewing some of the more left organizations to kind of get both point of views, which I think is really, really cool.
I do as well. And we're also getting opportunities such as being able to work with fellow conservatives on campus. We've done an event or two with the Clemson College Republicans, and we've also been in contact with other chapters such as the Winthrop chapter.
Yeah, College of Charleston.
Yeah.
I'm working out right now trying to get contact with Presbyterian College, and that's kind of given us opportunity to kind of grow our networking, and which I think is really good when we get a bunch of conservative orgs across the country and across the state to be able to work together. We have so much more power and so much more sway than we would as an individual org.
And like you said, across the country, we actually are a part of a bigger organization called the College Republicans of America, the CRA. They're actually about as new as we are.
I think they started about 2 weeks before we did, and they're kind of growing exponentially. They're now bigger than the old national organization, and it's given us opportunities that we wouldn't get otherwise. They've given us access to resources, to chapter boxes, to lawyers, to anything we may need to help push the conservative movement here on campus and across the country.
Yeah, and I think that a big difference and a big plus to the CRA is that they're kind of a more new age conservative like us. I would say that they're definitely more of the Gen Z type conservatives. I believe that their founder is actually just a bit older than us. I think he's a law student. So very young base, very young organization, and that's just kind of what we want to see. That's what I would love to see in politics, is more young people getting involved in things other than just picketing and door knocking.
Exactly. No, I think that is going to be, our generation's going to be the ones making a lot of the changes. Because right now we have and most people in office are from the baby boomer generation, and now you have some millennials and stuff going in. But I think it's going to be our generation because we're the main voting force right now.
Oh, yeah. And I was actually talking to my mom over lunch today about politics, and she was explaining how, and she's from Gen X. She's like, everyone blames all the baby boomers for all the problems. And I'm like, yeah, because the baby boomers are the ones in office. They've been in office since their time, and they just, they're old geriatric now.
Yeah.
And, I think they were there so long that Gen X doesn't really have that big opportunity to go in, and thankfully our generation
are becoming a lot more active.
Exactly, and I think that's a good thing.
And I think there is a really big divide in our generation. There are very few people in our generation who are pretty moderate. You're either very far left, very far right. And when I say far, I don't mean extremist, but you have people who are very passionate. They're very solidly either left or very solidly right.
Yeah.
And obviously within that you get your more authoritarian versus more libertarian. Personally myself, I put myself more libertarian because I believe in small governments and stuff like that. But being able to have the opportunities as a Republican organization and as a conservative organization, we can push our ideals a lot farther than we could as individuals.
Agreed. And I think that with college Republicans, we can push our ideals farther than even, in my opinion, some with the ability of campaigning and stuff like that. We can push it into action, direct action into political action.
Right, yeah. Because that's one of the big things for us is we're not a nonprofit. If you look at some of the conservative orgs, some of our greatest allies, Turning Point, they're a 501c3. They're not allowed to endorse and campaign. They can still protest, and they have in the past.
Oh, yeah, they've done a lot of protests on campus.
Yeah, they're the ones who led the protests against masks on campus. And there were massive counter-protests against them, mainly led by the College Socialists, I believe.
I believe so. They came to the protest, and it didn't get violent, but it got, I would say rowdy would be a good word.
Yeah, and they led a kind of protest to the president's house, in front of the president's house, and all played dead because we're all going to die if we don't wear a mask, and we see how that's gone now.
It's very hard to take them seriously that day, in my opinion.
Yeah, and we've been blessed to live in a state where our governor has made sure that we're not going to be forced to do that again.
I agree, and I do thank McMaster for that.
I do, and I don't agree with everything he says, but I think overall as a governor, he has done good things for us.
He has. But yeah, I think that is kind of the reason that we do this specifically, is that we want to be able to push conservative values with Gen Z, because we want to show people with stuff like this podcast, stuff like our weekly meetings. Shameless plug, our weekly meetings are Monday nights in Ward Law 114.
From 6 to 7 p.m.
6 to 7 p.m. And the link to our information will be in the bio. Shameless plug done. But yeah, so I think that our ability to do that is imperative.
Yeah, for sure. And then with that, speaking of kind of our shameless plugs, our podcast is going to be about a bi-weekly, depending on, we're still college students. We have a lot of work. I'm an engineering student, so I have a crazy amount of homework, crazy amount of papers and stuff right now.
Yeah, I'm doing research myself, so my schedule is very tight.
Along with both of us having jobs as well. You know, I'm an IT guy.
I do data entry.
So we're both busy with a lot of things on the side. But this is going to be kind of something we can do in the background every other week or so. Sometimes if there's a lot going on, we may have an emergency session. And if there's been something massive that's happened, we're going to make sure we get on there and talk about it to inform people. But yeah, so as we're wrapping up here, once again, I thank y'all for listening in, and I hope you kind of listen in to our next one. We're going to be, like I said, about every other week we'll be doing this. And we'll have different speakers on. For the next first couple, we're just mainly going to be us. But going into, as we're kind of getting this built up, we'll have much more people. And we're going to be, once again, it'll be listenable right now on Spotify and YouTube. Hopefully we'll be moving soon to be able to do Apple Podcasts as well.
Yep.
Along with moving over to, eventually we're hoping to get doing this live streamed as well.
Yeah, that would be a great opportunity to, especially if we can interact with fans and kind of
take in suggestions. If y'all have something you have a question about, ask us. We'll give our opinions on it. Not necessarily opinions of the org, but our individual opinions at least. And
and if you have any questions, comments, concerns, if you want to even be on the podcast, because this is not just about us. This is about other people as well. Feel free to follow us on our Instagram, USC College Republicans.
And then also, we have our email. It is collegeR.USC@gmail. Shoot us an email. Both me and Dakota have access to that, so we'll be able to see that and get right back to you. And if you have any questions, drop it in the comments. Shoot us an email. Find our link tree, which is on all our social media. That has access to our Discord, our Garnet Gate. Everything you need to know to keep updated with us.
We promise that not every episode is going to be a shameless plug, just this one.
Yeah, this is our introduction, so we're trying to get everything built out and we can understand what we're going to be doing with this.
All right, and with that, I think that we're good to go.
All right, well, I'll see y'all next time, and hope you join in next.
Have a good one.